Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to uncover some of the hidden physics that literally guide our everyday motion. We move through the world so naturally that we rarely, if ever, stop to actually think about the invisible rules governing every single turn we take. I'm talking about everything from a simple car ride to the actual orbit of our planet. So today, we're demystifying centripetal acceleration, and I promise you, by the end of this explainer, you are going to see the physical world around you in a completely different and honestly deeply fascinating way. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The acceleration illusion. Okay, I want you to picture this. You are sitting in the passenger seat of a car, just cruising along. The driver suddenly takes a really sharp curve on the road, and instantly, you feel your body pressed hard against the door. I mean, we've all felt that, right? Being pushed sideways while the car turns. It genuinely feels like there's this mysterious invisible force suddenly shoving you outward, just violently away from the turn. It's a completely visceral, physical memory that I'm sure every single one of us shares. But here's where our physical senses actually kind of play a trick on us and where the physics gets incredibly interesting. Imagine just glancing over at the car's dashboard during that exact sharp turn. The speedometer might be completely still, right? Locked in at a perfectly steady, constant speed. Now, common sense tells us that if our speed isn't changing, well, we aren't accelerating. We usually think of acceleration as just, stomping on the gas pedal to go faster or slamming on the brakes to slow down. But physics tells a totally different story here. Even though the car's speed is staying exactly the same, something absolutely fundamental is changing. Believe it or not, you are in fact still accelerating.
Section 2. Defining centripetal acceleration.
So what is actually going on? Well, the phenomenon we're talking about is called centripetal acceleration. By definition, it's the acceleration of an object moving in a circular path. But here is the absolutely crucial part to wrap your head around. This acceleration always points toward the center of the circle. Remember that feeling of being shoved outward against the car door? In reality, the car is literally being pulled inward to keep it from just flying off in a straight line. The door is actually just pushing inward against you. It's an inward-seeking pull, not an outward push.
Now, you might be wondering, okay, how can you accelerate without actually speeding up? Well, in physics, velocity isn't just about how fast you're going. It is about speed and direction. They are a package deal. So if an object is moving in a circle, even if its speed remains perfectly 100% constant, its direction is changing continuously at every single fraction of a second. Because the direction of the velocity is constantly changing, the object is technically always accelerating. That's it. That is the secret. That's centripetal acceleration in a nutshell.
Section 3. The math behind the motion.
Now, don't let the math intimidate you here, because this equation is actually just a really beautiful, simple story about how things move. The magnitude of centripetal acceleration, which we represent by a sub c, is equal to the speed of the object squared divided by the radius of the circular path. So just three little variables: acceleration, speed, and radius. Let's actually deconstruct what these variables mean in real life, because they completely dictate how much of that inward pull is required to keep any object moving in a circle.
Let's look at how speed and radius kind of fight against each other. Because speed, or v, is squared in our formula, it has a massive impact. If you double your speed going into a turn, you actually quadruple the inward pull needed to keep you on the road. Seriously, this is exactly why those yellow speed limit signs on highway off-ramps are actual, literal physics warnings. They are not just friendly suggestions. On the flip side, we divide by the radius. A larger radius, meaning a really wide, sweeping turn, results in a much smaller centripetal acceleration. That's why you can take a nice, wide curve on a highway at 65 miles per hour without feeling like you're being violently thrown to the side.
Section 4. Everyday centripetal forces.
Let's start with something small and super tangible. Imagine a stone tied to the end of a string, and you're just whirling it around in a circle right above your head. Naturally, the stone wants to fly off in a straight line, but the string is constantly pulling it inward, forcing it to change its direction. In this specific case, the tension in that string is providing the exact centripetal acceleration we've been talking about. It's always directed inward, right along the string, pointing straight back to your hand at the center.
Now, let's scale things up a bit to human-sized thrill rides. Think about the massive metal structures of a Ferris wheel or a crazy roller coaster loop. When a roller coaster car goes completely upside down in a loop, it is this exact same inward pull, this centripetal acceleration dictated entirely by the car's speed and the radius of the loop, that actually keeps the car safely arcing through their curves, rather than just shooting straight off into the sky. The metal tracks literally push inward on the car, constantly changing its direction.
And we can actually scale this up even further to a planetary level, which is just incredibly awe-inspiring to think about. Picture a satellite orbiting the Earth.
Obviously, there's no physical string up there, and definitely no metal tracks. In space, gravity acts as that invisible string providing the centripetal acceleration. Without it, a satellite's sheer speed, which, just to put this into perspective, for the International Space Station is a staggering 17,500 miles per hour. That speed would just send it flying off into deep space. This exact same mathematical relationship literally governs the cosmos. It's what keeps the moon orbiting the Earth and the Earth orbiting the sun.
Section 5. The big takeaways.
All right, let's bring it all together. What do we actually need to remember? First, centripetal acceleration occurs during any kind of circular motion. Second, it always points toward the center of the circle. Remember, it is an inward pull, absolutely not an outward push. Third, it exists simply because the direction of velocity is constantly changing, even if the speed itself is locked in perfectly. And finally, the strength of that acceleration depends entirely on how fast the object is moving and how tight the circle is. Understanding these 4 simple rules is honestly like having a master key for understanding the physical world around us.
So I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Physics isn't just some abstract thing that happens in a textbook. It is literally happening to you every single day. So how will you notice this invisible inward pull the next time you take a turn? Next time you're in a car or riding a bike and you lean into a curve, I want you to remember the math. Remember the constantly changing direction, and remember that invisible force pulling you perfectly, mathematically, toward the center. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.